Hey everybody. This month marks the 10-year anniversary of when I published my first book, freshman year. And in a previous video, I went over the origins of the story and the actual writing process. But today, I'm just going to talk about the actual publication. After I finished writing the book and editing it to the best of my ability at the time, I decided I wanted to publish it. And so it was just a simple Google search that I did to find, independent publishers. And I came across a company called Author House. And Author House, I called them up on the phone after a quick, email inquiry where the guy is like, I think that we're going to maybe do this. Give me a call. So I called this guy and he talked to me a little bit about um, Author House. And their claim to fame was Legally Blonde. Remember the novel Legally Blonde? No, you probably don't. Of course, Legally Blonde was in fact made into a movie with Reese Witherspoon, I believe, and spawns a franchise, a very well known film series, actually. But the book I had never heard of. Well, there's a very good reason for that. And I ended up looking up the book way after the fact. And I mean, the reviews on Legally Blonde, the novel, are probably unwarranted. They're very, I wouldn't say vile, but they're definitely negative. So that, this whole situation should have been um, a wake up call. But I didn't do much research. They were the first company that I found, and I didn't know what I was really doing. I mean, I had never published a book before. I'd had a couple of newspaper articles published, but that's a completely different situation. So I didn't really know what was going on. They had me pay to publish, which I'll be honest about it. It was $1,000 about. At the time, I didn't know that was a bad thing. I assumed this is the way things were when you published a book because again, I want to stress once again, I had never done this before. This is part of the reason I'm making this video. For any prospective writers out there, don't pay to publish your book. It's, as I said before, this is called a vanity press, and it's really meant for you to be able to publish your book, and they're not going to really do much help for you, right? So I was excited just to get published. I mean, my roommate, I was at college at the time, and my roommate had reminded me how long it took Stephen King to get published. And then, so to be basically told, well, your first book, we're going to publish it, it sounded great. It sounded like a damn good plan to me. And again, another wake up call should have been that they were getting kind of pushy about having phone meetings. And I was in college, as I said, and so I wasn't able to just call them whenever they wanted me to. And they were calling and leaving me voicemails. And again, I mentioned this is 10 years later. They're still calling and leaving me voicemails about, different services that they have. And they're emailing me, well, you can order this many books for this much money. Again, don't do that. It turns out that I was not alone. Again, after the fact, uh, if I could just, I'm going to leave you with some advice, but the first piece of advice would be do research. Google, don't just Google the company, Google the company, Google the reviews of the company. I mean, I was, in my actual research, I'm just going to say the word scam came up a lot. Now, so I got published, and that's the thing is I've learned from my mistake, and I would never use that company ever again. But my book is published. Freshman year is published. You can buy it. You know what I mean? So that's a positive to me, even though I kind of, again, I'll say it. I'll say it right. I got scammed by this company, but that's not to say that I completely regret. I regret not doing the research, but on the other hand, my book is out there for people to read, right? And that's not a bad thing, in my opinion. I'm not sure that it's the best book out there. I edited it myself, which I wouldn't do again. And let me just, I don't want to talk briefly about my second book that I published. Quick plug, right? Called Tales of Blue Hill, which I published now. That's awful. About 3 years ago, I published this one. One thing that I did was I hired an editor. Okay, I can't stress this enough. Look, if you're a creative person, you know what? I'm not saying I'm a bad writer. And in fact, my editor has told me I'm a good writer. But at the end of the day, you're too invested in the project to pick up on all the things that are wrong with it. With Tales of Blue Hill, which was again my second book, my editor and I had just a little spat about one whole chapter. I thought it was great. He didn't. And eventually I came to my senses. Stephen King once said, just trust your editor. And he's right. Okay. But I do highly, 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 I can't stress this enough, highly recommend having an editor. And you're going to pay that editor. And you're going to pay the editor. Don't pay the publishing company. Again, you pay the editor to do the work. You've written an entire book. But as I say, you're too close to the material to understand what's wrong with it. And nothing's perfect. That's my philosophy about it's no book that I ever write will ever be perfect. I mean, it happens once in a while. A writer has one book, if they're lucky, that is a bestseller. Maybe they get some sequels. Maybe I mentioned Stephen King. You get a writer who gets, that lightning in a bottle and just is able to keep publishing. That doesn't happen very often. But if you just publish your book without an editor, it shows. And ever since publishing freshman year, I've definitely read some self-published books that they weren't edited. So that's the first thing that I have done since publishing freshman year is I got myself an editor. Now, I self-published Tales of Blue Hill, but I didn't use a company. I used Amazon Kindle Direct, which is no cost. Again, don't pay to publish your book. It's no cost. You do it yourself. You design your cover and all that yourself. You set your own price. And thirdly, what I did is that I never did with freshman year. This is part of what I should have been doing for freshman year, is I did my own marketing. As I mentioned, I'm here in Bucksport, Maine. And I reached out to as many local bookstores as I could find on Google. And when I say local, I'm talking all over the state of Maine. I'm not talking just in my area, right? You want to get your name out there. And all over the state, libraries, like I said, bookstores, get the book sold. You don't want to just sit on shelves for years. So that's something that I did. I created a book trailer, which is a great way of doing it. I was like, I have a YouTube channel. I may as well utilize that. So on this channel, there is a book trailer that I made for Tales of Blue Hill. And that was part of the marketing, and I loved it. It was so much better doing it all myself than having somebody else do it for me. And yeah, and as I said, just to wrap things up here, to get back to freshman year, in retrospect, yeah, I get screwed by this company. But at the end of the day, I did get published, and like I said, I don't have a regret, because if you can't learn from your mistakes, I don't know what to tell you. You have to learn from your mistakes, and if you're going to become a better writer over time, learning from your mistakes is probably the best thing you could possibly do. So I'm not mad. I mean, and I'm not gonna ever get all, whatever. I'm not gonna sue the company. I would never do that. Shit happens. I made a mistake. I didn't do enough research. It's on me, really, right? Part of it's on me. Part of it, I was young and naive. But, no. But, as I said, just in conclusion, I'm not mad. I'm happy that the book is out there. You can go buy it yourself. I'm not telling you have to. But you can go buy it yourself. And that's the beauty of it. It's out there. It's out there for people to buy. And I mean, at the end of the day, for a writer, what's better than having your books available for folks to be able to buy? I mean, that's it, right? That's the number one. You want people to be able to buy the material that you wrote. So that's it. That's all I got. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good day.